Welcome to The Frequency. I'm your host, Dee Barnes, and thank you for tuning in. All right, we have a special guest for you today. This conversation is going to be so good. It's about the purpose of power. And who do we have? Alicia Garza. You know that name because she is one of the co-founders of the Black Lives Matter movement. And we're going to talk about this book and organizing and all kinds of organizations and how do we gain power. And right now on The Frequency, welcome Alicia Garza. What's up, sis?
Hello, my love. Thank you for having me. It's good to see you.
Great to see you too. And thank you for taking the time. I appreciate you. I have to talk to you about your book, The Purpose of Power. But first, I want the audience to get to know you a little bit more. Where did you grow up?
You know, I am a Bay Area born and raised, homegirl and hand grenade, as they say.
Yes, one of my favorites. I love that title, Sonia Sanchez. Yes.
Right, giving homage to our sister.
That's right.
Yeah, I'm born and raised in the Bay Area. I grew up for the first part of my life, well, all my younger life in Marin County, which is like north, I think, of San Francisco. It's on the other side of the Golden Gate Bridge, right in between the Golden Gate Bridge and the Richmond Bridge. And then I lived in Oakland for about 20 something years until I recently moved to the state of Georgia.
See, these are rich cultural cities that you're in, deep, deep, deep in the community.
Definitely.
So what led you to your path to become an activist?
You know, I would say that my initial kind of path here was through my mother. I don't think she meant to do it.
Right.
I don't think she meant to do it, but a couple of things. One, my mom used to tell me to look up everything, right? I remember one time she brought me home a t-shirt. My mom loved free stuff.
Yes.
And she brought me home a t-shirt from the 7-Eleven, and it said free Kuwait. And I was like, what's Kuwait? She was like, look it up. And this was like before the internet.
I was just about to say that my mom did the same thing. She brought those, remember the encyclopedias?
Yes. And we had to
our Google
because she got hers at the garage sale, right? So
yes,
I was looking it up, like, where is Kuwait? And I would learn about the conflict happening there. But really, there's like an ethos that my mom really, I think, embedded in me, which is that everybody deserves to live with dignity. My mom would say hello to every Black person she ever saw anywhere. Right. And if I didn't say hello to, she would pop me one, and remind me. You always got to say what's up to our people. Because we live in a world where our people are not respected and not even acknowledged. And so I'm going to be a part of that. And also, I'll be honest, my mom, for the first part of my life, was a single mother, and she raised me until I was about 4 with her twin brother. And so my mom would work during the day, and my uncle would work at night. And my mom talked to me a lot about how hard that was. She talked to me about how child support really didn't cover much, and you had to fight for every 10 cents of it. And she really also talked to me about, the importance of making good decisions with good information, right? She did not tell me anything about birds and bees. I never heard stork stories. She was like, sex makes babies, and babies are expensive.
Right. I love that. I love the fact that mothers in particular, especially single moms, they have to. They're so truthful. They don't have time for the fairy tale. Because they're so entrenched in the reality. You know what I mean? My mom instilled the same thing into me with speaking to people, especially speaking to our people. And sometimes because of the world and everything that our people have gone through, there's that shield, that wall, that defense mechanism. And it's always so disarming when you do speak to them.
That's right.
They're like, oh, hey,
why are you talking to me? Right.
Yeah. Why are you talking to me? Or it's like, oh, hey, I guess it's like, I can let the shield down a little bit,
That's right.
I have to get into your book now because I feel like that was your upbringing, was your path to write this. Am I wrong or am I right?
You got it. You're right.
The Purpose of Power. I love it. As you can see, I have all my my little stickies in it. It is amazing. I mean, first of all, I admire anyone who writes a full book.
No.
You know what I mean? How did you get there? Like, how did you manage to go from beginning to end?
It's really funny. I have a few girlfriends right now who are writing books, and they're trying to finish, and they're in the part of book writing, which I call just being in the tunnel.
Yes.
And you're like right in the middle of it. You can't see the light at the end, and you can't see where you came from. You're just
right.
And you have to just keep digging and have faith that there's light on the other side. One of the things that really inspired me to write this book, obviously, was my mother. But in addition to her, because my mom always loved my writing and always wanted me to be a writer.
Nice.
Which, I had to, after she passed away, I didn't think I was going to finish the book. And I just knew, like, I got to do this for Mom. She would be very disappointed if I quit in the middle. But there was also like a political imperative for me. And, we were right at the precipice of a major election in this country where we could have made some decisions that were permanent, right?
Right.
And I'm, of course, referring to the election between Trump and Biden.
Yes.
And really, it's not a party thing. Like many Black people, I do what I think is in my best interest.
Right. Of course. I mean, most people do.
Right. But for me, what I was looking at was the movement perspective. And, there's not a lot of books on organizing. There's a lot of
Right.
things that are retrospective and look back, and they're coming from the outside, right? These are people who study people who did the thing. And I
Right.
think more of us who are actually doing the thing need to write. My book is not the definitive book on organizing, but it was meant to spark a conversation amongst other organizers and people who are trying to create change about what we think it takes and what we're doing it for. This work is really hard. If you don't have clarity about what you're trying to get out of it,
Yes.
then you're not going to be in it for very long. I also really wanted to put at the forefront, sister, that power is actually what we're fighting for. And that is really different than I think a lot of the ways that we talk to each other as Black people, especially about what it is that we want. I think we're taught in some ways that what we want is like white people's version of the thing, but make it Black. And I'm like, I'm not sure. I think we want the ability to make decisions for ourselves. And I think we want the ability to create systems that don't actually result in inequity and poverty and pain. And in order for us to do that, we actually have to consider, what does that take? It's not just empowerment, right? We talk to each other, and we get talked to a lot about feeling good about ourselves in the midst of conditions that are terrible, rather than changing the conditions themselves so that you actually can feel good and be doing good at the same time.
Right.
That's really what I'm trying to put on the table with the purpose of power.
This is amazing. I'm so grateful we're having this conversation, because there's so much I want to ask you. First, I want to break down what you said about movement. And it's something you said that was so profound in the book. You said that hashtags do not start movements, people do. That's right. And I was like, hello, because this generation is all about the hashtag. So can you break down what you meant by that?
Yeah, well, I've come to start saying that over the last decade because, with the rise of Black Lives Matter, I think the most common question that I would hear, besides, don't all lives matter, which.
Right. Yes. Right?
But the most common question that I would hear is, well, how did you start a movement from a hashtag? And I was like, I don't understand. That's not what happened here.
Right.
One, these movements are old, right? And they ebb and flow, right? I didn't start a movement. I started an organization with my sisters that is in the Black radical tradition, right?
Right.
And we didn't create that, right? Our people created that. Through unspeakable conditions. And it came before us. And if we do our jobs right, it'll come after us too. But we'll be winning things that have us able to fight for other things, right? We can have new problems to solve instead of trying to keep chipping away at these old
the same problems. The same problems the generation before us had. It reminds me so much of James Baldwin.
Exactly.
When...
Exactly.
How long do we have to wait for the progress?
How long must we wait?
How long must we wait for the progress? I'm just, it's profound when you say that you're chipping away at something that we're still dealing with.
We're still dealing with it.
Okay, listen, we're going to take a break. When we come back, we're going to go more into what we're still dealing with right here on the frequency on the Black Star Network.
Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punch!
I'm real revolutionary right now.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, there's a difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be Black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?
Back right here on the frequency with Alicia Garza, and we are talking about the movements and the movement that we're in right now and the battles that we are fighting as African Americans are still fighting to this day, that we seem to have been fighting for generations. Alicia, welcome back.
Thank you.
When you said that, like I was just telling you, it made me want to laugh and cry at the same time, because why do you think that the progress is taking so long? We've sent out this message over and over again. What is it going to take?
Mm-hmm. You know, I think it's got to take a couple of things.
Yes.
And what I'm going to say, Sister Dee, you're going to understand deeply. One, I think it takes power. So we need to be making the rules. We need to be the people who are setting the agenda. And we need to have an agenda that is not just focused on a small group of people, but like does the best for the most amount of people.
Right.
So that's one piece. But then there's an internal piece that I really, have been thinking about a ton. As a student of history, I know that all successful movements are interrupted, right? And they're often interrupted by outside influences, but they use members of our communities, right? To kind of create strife and, discord and disharmony. And, it's interesting because when you look throughout history at every successful movement, right, that has been an element. And the result of it, of course, is that our perspective on what it will take is that nothing can change anything, right? It leads to nihilism. It leads to apathy. We come to think of ourselves as inherently flawed people that can't get anything right. And I think we have to really develop and design tools to protect against that, especially in a culture where we are now bombarded with so much information that we don't know where it comes from.
Right. Before we can fact check.
Yeah, we just absorb it. Like, how long did it take for me to learn your story and your history, sister?
Right.
How long has it taken for people to understand that this movement is not hashtag fueled, but organizer fueled?
Exactly.
How long has it taken for people to really understand, what Dr. King was trying to do and what Malcolm X was trying to accomplish, what Sister Rosa was trying to accomplish, and even what this movement is trying to accomplish, and what has gotten in the way of that? I talk about this in the book about, the stories that we tell that I call fairy tales, that we perpetuate, that make us feel better, but confuse us about how change happens and what gets in the way. And I don't subscribe to the notion that we're our own worst enemies, right? I don't do that.
Okay.
But what I will say is, if we really about this life, then we have to be committed to a more nuanced understanding, not just of human fallacy, right? The real thing. But we also have to be really deeply entrenched in the strategies that white supremacy and this government has used to keep itself intact. And we have to hold both of those things together, and then make assessments, right, about what we're working with and how it is that we move forward.
Whew. One of the things that each of these movements within the community, I've always, admired and tried to get involved with, but I never understood the process of an organizer and how do you organize? Can you please break that down for the audience? Because I know there's people out there that are like, I want to do something. I feel like I need to do something, but they don't know where to begin. They don't know how the process starts. And I'm one of those people. So please walk me through it, because I really want to know. I've been part of, for example, with hip hop, we were part of this process, the All in the Same Gang project, which was to stop gang violence. And I was all in, from the music part to the, we had these giveaways, and of course, corporate sponsorship got involved, and, then it becomes another thing. And then we went to the, the certain heavily gang influenced area in Los Angeles. And we did the video and we helped the community, and then packed up and left. And then I'd never seen them go back to do it. And I felt like that was something that I should have made, picked up the mantle to continue, or how. So can you please walk me through, like, how do you become an organizer, and what are the steps that it takes to create and maintain?
Yeah. Well, first and foremost, I'm so glad you told that story, Sister Dee, because, I think where and who you work with is just as important as what you do.
Oof. Yes. Yes. So, you are giving us some truth bombs today. Go ahead.
I often say, it's important to figure out what you care about and to find other people who care about the same things that you do.
Right.
But it's also important to understand or to even consider, right? What's important to me about how the work gets done and who I'm working with. And I often find that people don't do that extra layer, right? And so then they get really deeply disappointed when they encounter something like what you encountered, right? Which was a misalignment, right, of goals and outcomes. Okay.
Yes.
And so, there are so many incredible organizations out there who prioritize and really live their values around, participation, right? And engagement, direct engagement, and really being led by people who are being impacted by the problems that you're trying to solve. People who are more relationship focused and based rather than, but there's lots of different ways to approach change, right? Okay. You can, give stuff away, right? That's a way to approach change.
Right.
And you can also give people the tools that they need to be the change makers themselves.
Exactly.
So whatever your approach is, find a group that shares your approach, not just the same thing you care about. And then the other thing I would say is that organizing is fundamentally about building relationships among people who don't currently know each other, who care about the same things and want to take action together. And so to be an organizer, you really need to first and foremost be somebody who can do good listening.
Right.
Somebody who is also themselves willing to share, your vision, your hopes, your fears, right? And then also someone who is thinking about over time, how do we think we solve this problem? Okay. And I think with organizing, we have this idea, right, that there's one person. This is an example of those fairy tales. We can all name, a leader of a movement, but can we name the engine behind it, right? Like, do people talk about Diane Nash? Do people talk about the fact that Sister Rosa continued to organize well into her 80s, right?
Wow, they don't.
Like, literally. And it's because we don't know that, right? We're taught that, for you to be an organizer, you have to be the one with the bullhorn. You got to be the one in front. And that's not what organizing is. Organizing is reaching as many people as possible who are looking for you and getting people together to come up with solutions to the challenges that we face. And what's core to that, at the very, very center of it, is being able to build relationships among people who might want the same thing, but they might come from different places. How do you build bridges amongst people's differences in order for us to take action together? Not get rid of the differences. The differences are not a bad thing.
Right.
It's how do you bring all those different elements together so that it becomes a song? Okay. Really what an organizer is.
Is this something that you've always wanted to be when you were growing up? Like, I can't see you as a little child, even though you were raised in Oakland. So you had like the Black Panther, influence, community-based influence on you. But was that something that you wanted to do when you were like younger? You were like, this is what I want to do, maybe politics or something community?
It's so funny. I didn't know what organizing really was until I got to college.
Right.
And, we got to think about that, right? Again, I didn't learn about organizing in middle school or high school, right?
It's not.
And that was designed, and we can see in places like Florida, places like Alabama, right? They're trying to like reinstate that kind of stuff. Places like Texas, where, they have textbooks that say that there was no slavery. Right? Actually, slavery was people migrating from Africa to come here to work. That's literally what they're teaching in schools, right?
Insane. That's insanity.
It's bizarre. So I didn't grow up learning and knowing about organizing. And then on top of that, Sister Dee, growing up in the 80s and early 90s, I will say that, at that point, the Panthers were not at their height anymore. And so the way that people talked about that work was quite different. And it wasn't until I got to college and got exposed to texts and people, right. Work that I was like, I can do that. I'm social, I like to build relationships, but fundamentally I'm a connector. And that I think is my role, right? What I'm good at. I'm good at bringing people together who don't think they have anything in common to like get stuff done together. And so
you really shocked me there for a minute, thinking about your upbringing in Oakland. They're not teaching what the Panthers did in school. It's silence. It's almost, not at all.
Like not at all. But what's cool is as an adult, I can tell you, Panthers are everywhere. Like I run into Panthers at the grocery store, at the doctor's office. When you go out to eat, it's like folks are still very much alive, very much active. A lot of the programs that people began are still in existence and still taking care of our people. You know what I mean? So some of it is like being able to also expose people, right, to what's in front of their face. That is also a part of organizing, right? Like we're all taught to see the world a certain way, and the way we're taught to see the world benefits a certain group of people and benefits a certain arrangement. And as an organizer, right, your role is often to expose people to different perspectives, right, and different ways of looking at things, and to really also expose how power operates, right? It wasn't until somebody organized me, right, that I understood, not only was I not taught this stuff, right, but there was actually an agenda behind not teaching me these things. Then I became committed to finding out more, right?
Exactly.
More. I feel like this is what people are doing now on YouTube, but they're going down weird, like rabbit holes that, may not take you into a good place.
Yeah. Radicalizing people in different directions. We're going to take a break, and when we come back, we're going to get into our favorite chapters, the purpose of power, right here with Alicia Garza on The Frequency on the Black Star Network.
Don't you think it's time to get wealthy? I'm Deborah Owens, America's Wealth Coach, and my new show on the Black Star Network focuses on the things your financial advisor or bank isn't telling you. So watch Get Wealthy on the Black Star Network.
Right here on The Frequency with Alicia Garza, and we are talking about her book, The Purpose of Power. Alicia, please join me. How we come together when we fall apart, which I thought was, wow, interesting. I want to get into that, but I want to share something with you, because the reason I was asking you about organizing too was also I had an experience with Diane Watson, Senator Diane Watson, when the whole Los Angeles riots happened. And this is when I was still doing the hip hop show, Pump It Up. We went into the community and we watched her work. And it was amazing because, everything got burned down, and they needed stuff like simple things like diapers, baby formula. And she had all these, organizations that were coming in and donating stuff. And then she was organizing it and having people, get it out to the community. And it was amazing to see. She was the front face, like you were talking about, but then she had all these people behind her that were doing it. And as I was, speaking to her, just like I'm speaking to you, I was in awe because it was like, how does she do it? How is it being done? And I feel like your book, definitely for me, got to keep showing it because I love it. I'm going to give it out to a couple of people as gifts because like, it's a textbook on how to get it started. Mm-hmm. And when you say how we come together when we fall apart, it made me think about that moment in the Los Angeles riots where everything fell apart and then now we have to rebuild.
Yeah.
So what are some of your favorite chapters in the book?
Oh, I have so many favorites.
Okay.
It's funny because in writing the book, I don't think I did as much editing as I would have done if I had allowed myself to like think about it, right?
Right.
Stuff that I felt like just needed to be talked about,
mm-hmm.
that I felt like could be controversial, but shouldn't be, right? Like these are, again, in the same way that, right, like SNCC had all these debates about, do we register people to vote or do we train people how to do direct action, right?
Right.
I feel like there are a series of debates that we need to have as a generation and figure out where we land in terms of how do we think we win in this moment? How do we think we come together when everything is very clearly disintegrating? One of my favorite chapters in this book is pedestals, profiles, and platforms. And it's a piece of the book where I really talk about how for the first time in my lifetime, activists really got celebritized, right?
Yes.
This is not a thing that I had ever seen. I've been organizing for more than 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
The more public and visible way that I'm known, I think, doesn't capture, right, how long I've been in this work.
Right, it doesn't.
I just want to say, like, this has not happened before in my lifetime where, you have activists walking red carpets and, we were fortunate enough to be named as like Time's most influential people of the year. Like, this is not a thing that happens. And, there's all kinds of ways that people approach it. Some people have a real disdain for it and feel like it's opportunistic or it's somehow shady. Other people come into this work because that's what they want.
Right.
So we're kind of in that era now. And, I really make this argument that it's not that it's inherently good or bad. It's that you have to have clear strategy on what you're using it for. If you're using it just to boost your own personal profile, right? That's not actually moving us forward as a community. But if you're using those that level of exposure to also expose people to the issues and concerns and demands of your community, then that's a whole other conversation, altogether. I also kind of talk a little bit about the gender disparities, right? Of like who gets highlighted and who doesn't and why. And I talked a lot about, how, often it's men, right?
Exactly.
Heterosexual men that get placed at the forefront. I remember seeing this cover, I think of like Vanity Fair, that made me want to like pluck my eyeballs out, right? Not because I don't love me some Tracy, because I love her.
Right.
Tracy. But because it was like, they were doing this like Martin Luther King, Malcolm X themed thing with like the woman in the background, but that's like not what was happening.
Right.
And actually what has been so powerful, I think, about this last decade is that we've really seen the increase of public visible leadership from women, from queer people, from trans people, right? And I think that is deeply important. And yet we had these kind of mainstream narratives, right, that we're still holding on to about the powerful man and the strong woman behind him. And so, we talk about that in that chapter. Another chapter that I'm really, that's relative to that is this chapter on imposter syndrome.
Oh man,
Like,
you're hitting the truth bomb. Because I've been feeling that lately. I have been in it.
yeah, it's my love letter to us, honestly. And I talk about, right, how it's not so much that there may be some piece of imposter syndrome for Black women and women of color where we feel like we don't have the appropriate skills or we're just not good enough, right? But also, patriarchy is a real thing. And, living in a world where men get to be mediocre.
Okay. I'm talking the bare minimum. Just nothing.
Literally.
Just don't want a t-shirt, don't brush their teeth.
No, and the audacity of it all, right? The audacity of it all. And but we live in a world where we have to navigate, when we say something, people look at us funny, but when a man says the same thing less skillfully than we did, right?
Right.
And everybody flocks towards what they said, even though it was your idea.
Exactly.
And so I want to highlight that because I think there are still.
And when we say it as women, when we say it as women, we get picked apart.
Totally. And that's on so many levels, right?
Right.
Whether it's, telling our stories, right, of how we've been done wrong, whether it's giving our ideas for how it is that we move forward.
Right.
Our ideas are considered to be less valid than that of people who occupy positions of power in our society. And we still have to talk about it. And so I really wanted to put that chapter in there because I wanted people to understand that just because we're fighting for a world where there's justice and freedom and liberation doesn't mean that we're not still intentionally or unintentionally perpetuating the same dynamics that we're trying to intervene on.
Right.
So I put it in there so that we could really think about, in our organizations and the work that we do and the efforts that we put forth, are we still doing the same stuff? Or are we being conscious about not just representation, right? But representation with substance, okay? I don't just want more women in decision-making roles, but I want more women who have the same values that I do in decision-making roles.
That's what made me feel like your chapter on the power of identity politics. That was one of the ones that I was thinking about because just that word, identity, can you break it down for the audience so they...
Well, yeah, that word comes from us. I mean, identity politics is actually a movement phrase that comes first through the Combahee River Collective and people like Barbara Smith, right? Who talked about how they cannot separate their politics, right, from who they are in the world.
Right.
Then it gets co-opted, right? It gets co-opted by conservatives in this country who use it as a pejorative term. Identity politics goes from how you reconcile, right? Being of color, being woman, your sexuality, right? In a world that doesn't want you to survive because of that, to, woke whining, right?
No, you did not. Wait, you done said the buzzword. No, you didn't.
I did.
The woke.
What
do you think about that? Like how they're taking the word? And
I think it's complicated because honestly, what happens is we start to adopt the same stuff. So then you start hearing Black people be like, I'm not into that identity politics stuff. What is you talking about? You don't have a choice.
Exactly.
If you are aware of the fact that you are Black in this country, you do not get to abhor identity politics. And just because some white man in a suit told you it was wrong doesn't mean you have to adopt that. That comes from our foremothers. You understand me? That was the way for us to wrap ourselves in bubble wrap, right? Say, we got to outlast this idea that we have to leave parts of ourselves behind in order to pursue justice and freedom. And so I put that in the book because I needed people to understand some of these really tricky methods that conservatives in particular use to create and stow division and confusion amongst our own ranks. You have us talking about us against us, right? Yeah. But we don't understand the origins of where those things come from. And we don't understand always the impacts, right, of adopting those narratives. We don't need to be microphones for, my mom used to say, for example, the devil don't need no help. Okay.
Yep.
So people say, I'm just being a devil's advocate. She would be like, the devil don't need no help. They're doing fine on their own. Conservatives don't need help in terms of getting their message out. We shouldn't, keep kicking around their language, trying to draw people's attention to it, because all it's doing is embedding it. Right. What we do have to do, though, is organize our people, make sure our people are equipped with the information that we need to be critical thinkers. Right. And to see through the nonsense, and also to see what's on the other side.
Right.
That's why I wrote
That's what I want to get into next. When we come back from the break, we're going to talk to Alicia about how do we get to the other side and acquiring that power right here on the frequency on the Black Star Network.
When you talk about blackness and what happens in black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us. We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it.
This is about covering us.
Invest in black-owned media.
Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks.
We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind 100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible.
Checks and money orders go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is roland@rolandsmartin.com.
Back right here in the frequency with Alicia Garza. We're talking about her book, The Purpose of Power. Alicia, please join me because I want to talk about what you were saying, how we get to the other side and, power. Like, how do we get the power? I know you touched on it a little bit earlier, but how do we get power?
Well, we got to organize. We got to pass laws, and we got to put people in positions that can help us.
Power. That's basically it.
That's basically it. And I think that's important because I think a lot of people haven't fully thought about how power works and also how we get it. Right. And so I hear people all the time being like, we should just boycott or we should just not participate. And I'm like, okay, I hear you. But here's the challenge with that. It makes you feel good. Right? It definitely makes you feel good. But the machine continues without you, and it makes laws about you, and it makes laws without you. And so if you're abstaining, from moral objection, I get it. I get it. But like, who stops the machine?
Are you thinking about getting into politics, like running for any type of office?
When I was in Oakland, I thought about it. We're a tight-knit community there, and we've got some of the best people to do it coming out of our state. Right. I am really excited to support, one of my mentors and sheroes, Congresswoman Barbara Lee, for Senate. Yes. And she will be the only Black woman in the U.S. Senate if she is elected, and the only Black woman for sure with our values. So big shout out to Congresswoman Lee. Yes. And we'll be working, to make sure that her race is successful. And then also my sister, Latifah Simon, who is a warrior and has been a warrior since she was like 16 years old, right? Like people don't know that Latifah, I believe, is the youngest person, one of the youngest people to win a MacArthur Genius Award. I mean, like Latifah has been helping to like run the BART transit system for the last 10 years and killing it, and has brought in more money than any of her predecessors to help improve the system.
I wouldn't have known about her until you tweeted about her.
That's what I'm saying. I'm obsessed with her, and she happens to be my friend. But one of the reasons that I'm obsessed with her is that Latifah does all this stuff, right? And she just moves how she moves. She doesn't do it for the accolades, right? She just moves how she moves, like, you know, putting community ambassadors on BART instead of police officers, right? Like she knows what's up. So she is running for Congresswoman Lee's seat. And so this time next year, we could be putting 2 Black women from California into the United States Congress, which I'm 100% for. And I would just love to work for and behind them. That would make me so happy.
That's how you get involved. You're working as a support system. I see you. I see you as like the help in the foundation.
You know.
So what is Black? What is it? Black Future Lab. Excuse me. What is that? Is that your organization? Is that something you started?
Yeah. So in 2017, I left Black Lives Matter because I really wanted to start an organization that was focused on building power with elections.
Right.
And, this has been an age-old debate in our movements about whether or not to participate in elections. Obviously, we know that there is a ton of corruption inside of government, and government does not function the way that we want it to. But I am also a deep believer that, like, we cannot leave these folks up to their own devices.
Right.
There's too much at stake, and there's too much online for us to just walk away from it. It's ours just as much as it's theirs,
right?
If not more so, right? And so I built the Black Futures Lab in order to work to make Black communities powerful in politics, so we could be powerful in the rest of our lives. When we think about issues of police violence, when we think about issues of public safety, when we think about issues of affordable housing or jobs or wages, all of these things are decided through policy, not through wishing and hoping that things would be different.
That's right.
And too often, right, Black folks are not only not at the table, but we're not even shaping the agenda of what's being discussed.
Right.
And our work aims to change that. So we do build independent Black political power from with a range of strategies that includes collecting recent and relevant data about who we are and what we care about. We have run and conducted the largest survey of Black people in American history with our Black Census Project. And it's open right now for people to participate. So you can take it at blackcensus.org.
Nice.
You don't have to be, political. It's a nonpartisan survey. You don't have to give us your contact information or your name or anything like that to take the survey. We just want to know what you deal with, what you think is important, and what you want to see done about it. And then we take that data and we do something called the Black Agenda. And we'll be doing that for 2024, which is taking that information and turning it into a legislative agenda of policies that we fight for together in cities and states to make a real change in our neighborhoods. We also do door-to-door organizing, and we educate, activate, and motivate Black people to participate. And not because our ancestors died for the right or anything like that, just so we can be powerful, right?
Exactly.
It's us that are putting these issues on the map. And it's important for us to participate so that we can maintain and build our power. That's something that we work on. And then we tell new and different stories about who Black people are and who we can be. We are bombarded every single day by narratives that tell us we're not enough, that we don't do enough, that we don't do the right thing. And the fact of the matter is, more of us do the right thing than the wrong thing or nothing at all. And so we want to put those stories out there, and we do that, in a number of different ways. If you want to learn more about the Black Futures Lab, you can visit us at blackfutureslab.org. And of course, if you want to take the Black Census, take it at blackcensus.org and then pass it to like 5 of your friends.
That's right. That's amazing. I have to ask you, you said that in 2017, you left Black Lives Matter. What was that like? Because you were one of the original founders of the organization. What led you to that decision?
Yeah. Look, I've always been an organizer at heart, and I feel very strongly that there are multiple ways to make change. For me, I don't think it makes sense for all of us to be concentrated in one lane, right?
Right.
You need many approaches, many perspectives. And for me, I felt like, look, like it's no shade to any way that anybody else wants to do a thing, but where my heart is and where my passion is making sure that we pass laws that change the lives of Black people.
Right.
And so, I decided to start something myself that could help contribute, right, to this bigger approach and strategy. With that being said, I'm very grateful to be like the smallest part of something that has literally changed the course of history.
It really has. It really has. And I have to tell you, thank you. Thank you for doing that, you and your sisters, because that has really, I think it has helped a lot of people, Black people, just have an umbrella to come underneath to connect, and not just Black people. I mean, it connected all people. And it was really a movement, a force of change. Do you still feel like it is a movement and a force of change?
I do. I feel like it's been quite beat up.
Right.
So, but I do think that, people are thinking about race in this country in a whole different way. And we're also thinking differently about what's possible. And so again, I'm grateful to be the smallest part of something that has had such a major impact. And I look forward, years from now, of continuing to correct the record.
Right.
About the work that has been done and the work that is being done. And as I said, as a student of history, I look at things with a lot of nuance.
Yes.
Right? And I am aware, right, that that this movement has had such a global impact,
right,
that it has a bullseye on its on it. And so I don't take that lightly.
Right. Has it been a bullseye on you?
Oh, absolutely. In fact, in 2020, right, actually the day that my book came out, I was visited at my home by the FBI. They said that my name was on a hit list with several other elected officials and, other activists. And the FBI came to my house, give me a duty to warn, which is basically like, they just tell you some
heads up, but you on your own.
Yeah, but we can't do anything about it, and you should just be really careful type stuff. But interestingly, next month, so the people were caught, and it was actually not just one person; it was like 9 or 10 people that were a part of a Aryan Nation cell.
Oh my God!
They had planned to blow up power grids and kill a bunch of people, and they're actually going on trial pretty soon in North Carolina. So. Racial violence and racial terror is still very much a tactic that is used to stop and disband and disrupt. Yeah, absolutely.
How do you feel now about your safety?
I feel okay. I was always taught that, whenever there are threats made upon you, you're not supposed to be secret about it. You're supposed to tell people, you're supposed to tell a lot of people, because you want to be looking out for you and making sure that they know if something is out of the ordinary. And so I feel good, and I certainly feel embraced and protected.
Good, because we want you to be embraced and protected.
I appreciate that.
Of course, sis. And what's in the future for you? What's next?
I'm like coming off of this midterm election. We just got our numbers back about how we did door knocking in North Carolina and California and Georgia and Wisconsin. And I'm really happy to say that through our work at the Black to the Future Action Fund, which is like kind of like our an affiliated organization,
right?
We talked to Black people who may or may not have voted in the last 4 election cycles. Right. Usually folks that get targeted for door knocking are people who, vote all the time.
Right.
Focused on people who are like, I'm not sure if I'm going to vote or not. Right. I vote sometimes, other times. And because of our work, Sister Dee, we increased voter turnout by 50% amongst people who voted infrequently since 2018. So that's a big deal to me, especially as it relates to Black folk.
Yes.
So I'm going to keep doing that. We're still working on the Black census. We're trying to get to 200,000 responses, and we're about halfway there. Again, we are like shattering records for collecting data on Black people. This literally is the largest survey of Black people in the history of this country.
Right.
And you can be a part of that. So I'm just doing that. And then also have some creative projects on deck that I hope are able to get off the ground and get out long. But we'll tell more when it's kind of more on the way.
Thank you for sharing that with us, and thank you for sharing your time with us. This has been an amazing conversation. I have to tell everyone, please read this book, The Purpose of Power, How We Come Together When We Fall Apart. It is amazing. I'm giving it out to several people. I want my daughters to read it. I think it's important, and I hope that it'll inspire me to take the mantle and do something on that level.
You're already doing
Never be on your level, but close and supporting it.
Already doing it.
So thank you, sister. I really appreciate you. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
All right. And you stay safe. We love you. We love you. We appreciate you.
Thank you. With that.
Okay, good.
Big hugs and much love. Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Hatred on the streets, a horrific scene, a white nationalist rally that descended into deadly violence.
White people are losing their damn minds.
As an angry pro-Trump mob storms the U.S. Capitol,
we're about to see the rise of what I call white minority resistance. We have seen white folks in this country who simply cannot tolerate Black folks voting.
I think what we're seeing is the inevitable result of violent denial.
This is part of American history. Every time that people of color have made progress, whether real or symbolic, there has been what Carol Anderson at Emory University calls white rage as a backlash.
This is the rise of the Proud Boys and the Boogaloo Boys. America, there's going to be more of this.
Here's all the Proud Boys, guys.
This country is getting increasingly racist in its behaviors and its attitudes because of the fear of white people.
The fear that they're taking our jobs, they're taking our resources, they're taking our women. This is white fear.
All right, another episode of The Frequency with this book right here, The Purpose of Power, How We Come Together When We Fall Apart by Alicia Garza. I want to thank her so much for the truth bombs that she let off today. She really helped us understand the meaning of the movement, Black Lives Matter, and all the things we talked about, discussing politics. And I hope that, everyone out there enjoyed this conversation and that you take something from it where you might go into your own community and start a movement, an organization. Remember, it doesn't start from hashtags, it starts from people. Thank you. I'll catch you next time.